Yeah. Greetings, everyone. Good evening to those of you who are in South Africa. Om Namah Shivaya and peace to each and every one of you. This is Mahayogi. Mahayogi is a channel on YouTube devoted to teaching about spirituality and high spiritual ideals as well as esoteric knowledge, occult knowledge, ranging from the Western, Eastern, and the Central, which are African traditions of spirituality and spiritual practice. Today, I want to address something that I've realized just a couple of days ago. So let us start first by talking about what has been happening so far in my spiritual life. So updates, I've been working a lot, not as employment, but I've been working towards certain goals that I've been longing to push for quite a while. This is because I was in a halt or a pause for the past 3 years where I was focusing solely on somebody that I was in love with, and I put my goals and my aspirations on hold for time being. So now I'm slowly trying to come back, focus on myself, try to build myself, try to continue where I left off. So I've learned a lot of things the past 3 years. I have learned for the most part, that I was in ignorance, and I was young to a degree. I was very, very vulnerable to life, basically, and I thought I knew it all. Okay, I also discovered that along with spirituality and all spiritual systems around the globe, spirituality is so attached to culture, dogma, religion, and tradition, basically. About 7 years ago, I was strongly into Hinduism. Greetings, who is a Chadwin Caesar? Greetings, nice to meet you. I was into Hinduism a lot, and I've discovered that there's a lot of dogma in there. There's a lot of false knowledge. There's Crazy Potato. Greetings, Crazy Potato. Thank you for joining us. And thank you for 38 people who are joining us today. I still give thanks. So I was into Hinduism. I've discovered a lot of loopholes and a lot of false knowledge regarding Hinduism. As a practitioner of Sanatana Dharma, I've discovered that there's a lot of superstition around Sanatana Dharma. They don't approach this system as a scientific system where you can practice without attaching superstition around it. Anyway, that's one of the things that I've discovered. Also in Africa, particularly in South Africa, where I come from, there's a lot of religiosity, there's a lot of dogma surrounding our spiritual practices. There's also superstition. I guess it comes from ignorance, but yes, there's a lot of that. and I've discovered that the past um few years. Crazy Potato, I said hi. I replied saying hi. I hope you well. Um, the long way. Who's this idiot? Anyway, let us continue. We are talking about rampant materialism. What is rampant materialism? Materialism is loving material things more than you love yourself, more than you love the next person, more than you love spiritual knowledge. Now I'm going to curse a lot of you, well, some of you idiots. Anyway, let's answer Jake. Jake, I'm from South Africa. I don't know if you know South Africa. I'm from South Africa, Johannesburg. And then there's this idiot, Zach Rowe 6175. Suck your mother, boy, or girl, or whatever that you are, you idiot. Anyway, let us continue. Rampant materialism. Materialism is when you love material things more than you love the development of your soul, the next person, uh, whether you love your family, you simply love material things more than any other thing. So going back to that subject of rampant materialism, I've noticed a parallel with regards to rampant materialism and the destruction of relationships, especially the family nucleus. In the olden days, and I'm being an advocate for both genders, okay? In the olden days, our grandfathers, whether white, whether black, whether whatever, they were the ones permitted to provide for the family. They were the ones who were permitted to go out and work. Basically, these were breadwinners. So as a result of having that power, they abused their partners, their wives. You hear of stories of men beating up women. You hear of stories of men killing women simply because they know that they have the power to provide for a family or the power to withhold their resources from supporting the family. So as a result, many women were dependent on these people and they had nowhere to go. So they were stuck in abusive relationships. So in the olden days, also divorce was frowned upon. So you couldn't divorce anyone because of that also. So, but mainly it was because of this dynamics of power. It's an attachment whereby you feel you are useless to a point whereby there would be no one who would come after the person that abused you. You understand? So yes, I don't know if it's like Japanese, but I don't know. I don't want to sound racist or anything like that, but it used to happen a lot. So now, during that time also, there was a movement that was formed, which is of feminist origin. So these were feminists who were trying to oppose this power, trying to get women to participate in the work area in the corporate world, whereby they have access to material resources and financial resources to try and counteract that thing. So fast forward, we are now in this age, and let me tell you something. I'm speaking I'm speaking from experience, and I do know how it feels like to have to depend on someone in a relationship. Um, it's a spot you wouldn't want to find yourself in because people abuse power. You understand? So moving forward to 2025, women are now participating in the corporate world. Women are now accessing better jobs, better education, better financial resources. So now men are stepping away from this corporate world. Most of them are drug addicts. Most of them are turning into these rainbow movement people. Most of them, they are being in jail, being imprisoned for such and such a thing. So women have now the power that was given to men in the olden days. So now it's a reverse. Women are seen to be perpetuating the same kind of abuse and behavior. This is not a gender thing. It is a thing caused by rampant materialism, where people have power to provide resources to the next person at will, and also have the power to withhold certain resources from other people at will. So they start to think that they have power and they start to value material things over the next person. They become very ambitious to a point whereby they start to think that they can function independently from the next person. The Kybalion has been teaching us for many years that everything in the universe goes into the principle of gender, teaches us that gender can be found everywhere in the universe, even in the higher planes of existence. You find gender principle also in the mind, whereby you have the awareness being the male principle and the imaginative faculty being the feminine principle. So we need to see how important we are to the next person and try to shy away from rampant materialism, because this is how the matrix or Mayavi Shakti entraps us. First, you start by looking for employment. Let me make an example using men, as I am a man. I start to look for employment to support my family and my children. I finally get a job. At the job, I then look for promotion because I want more salary, because now I can't keep up with daily living and daily expenses. So I look for promotions and better opportunities at my workplace. What do? I start to cut off time that I have with my family. I start to cut off my presence at home and focus wholly on improving, or rather paying, the bills that I have every month, the bills that I keep on entrapping myself each and every month, and increasing my expenditure. I then focus on my job more. I start to neglect my family and my wife. I then do what? I forget that the main purpose of getting the job was to feed my family. And then I start to have these ambitious thoughts of myself, rising in the corporate world, becoming ambitious and compensating for some sort of material gain, you understand? I then go out, buy fancy cars. You know, last month there was a man who was driving a Ferrari near where I live basically. So this man was trying to pass in the road, and there was a taxi man who got or he who cut him off and got in front of him. So this man with a Ferrari couldn't comprehend the fact that somebody who is of a um lowly material um living could do such a thing to him. Why can't he be respected for driving a Ferrari? So this man cuts him off, and the man reverses his Ferrari, goes on to pursue this taxi driver, sees sees that this taxi driver is opening a gap, meaning he's now speeding and getting away from him. He takes out a gun, he shoots it, shot fire in the air, and then the taxi man runs away completely now. So now, should the gun or the bullets, if they were to hit the taxi man would have died for a stupid thing, simply because a man who drives a Ferrari thinks he's better than any other person. Rampant materialism is the cause of all separation, well, most of the separations that we find in the world. We find a race of people who claim to be superior than others simply because they can material things that appear to be better. Let me tell you another thing about rampant materialism. Take AI, artificial intelligence, for example. Right now, in colleges and high schools and primary schools, AI has been used or is being used as a medium for research and a medium for doing homeworks, for doing assignments, for writing tests. You find students, children, learners writing tests, class tests, and examinations with AI. They hide their phones so that the lecturers cannot see, so that the teachers cannot see, and they write tests, exams with the aid of this artificial intelligence. They can't even solve simple questions that require common sense. Why? Because this faculty of logic and intellectual thinking is not being used anymore. So what does it do? It becomes a latent power of the mind. It becomes a latent power of the mind. Now people can no longer access their intellectual faculty due to what? Rampant materialism. So now let us also move to another aspect of this. Rampant materialism, because now we communicate through phones, we communicate through emails, the internet. We no longer have, well, we do have that ability, but we just don't use it. We no longer use the ability of telepathy and sending messages through the mind. We no longer use the ether or the akasha element as a medium of communication. We now use these devices that make us or that make our powers latent. You understand? So rampant materialism is a cause of many problems that we are experiencing today. This gender power dynamics is a really sad matter, because now you find people using material things to dominate and rule over other people. Men think now that they have permission to date any woman simply because they drive fancy cars. There is no longer charm, charisma is no longer required, morality is no longer required because of this rampant materialism. You find idiots in Dubai doing idiotic things to women simply because they can pay them to do that. Imagine having to poo on someone's face. Imagine having to force somebody to have sexual relations with animals simply because you can pay them, or simply because you can provide material gains for such a thing. You start to use materials to coerce people into behaviors that you wouldn't even dare to pursue. So guys, we need to check ourselves, always introspect, always meditate, try to detach from materialism, because we will end up doing horrendous acts that will give us bad karma, that will cause unease, unhappiness, and lack of peace. With that being said, we've reached the conclusion of this live. I'd like to thank you for participating and joining me on this live. Till next time, this is Mahayogi on YouTube. Still, we are give thanks. Om Namah Shivaya.